By now, I'm sure many of you have seen the viral video of California Senator Alex Padilla being thrown to the ground and roughed up by federal agents after he questioned DHS Secretary Kristi Noem at a public press conference in LA.
Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go, I find behind my back.
All right, cool. One hand, lay flat, lay flat. Other hand, sir. Other hand.
Hi, my name is Suri Crowe, and you're watching the MeidasTouch Network. You know, usually I try very hard to find here's what we can do to make this situation better in every report that I put together. But I really don't want to sugarcoat this. We are in the bad place, peeps. We really are. We're in the bad place. Trump and his cult aren't about to cross the Rubicon. They've already crossed it long ago. Listen to these sobering remarks from never Trumper conservative and former Republican Charlie Sykes.
Decency, you say, that was really unfortunate. We're really sorry, Senator Padilla. You know, we disagree, but let's talk about it. Let's not lie about it. Let's not defend this. Let's not try to talk about censorship here. But again, if cruelty is the point, then so is the brutality, and so is this conflict. And I quoted Game of Thrones on your show the other day. Keep in mind that for this administration, chaos is a ladder. They embrace the chaos, and this feeds into it. And if that chaos includes arresting and humiliating and handcuffing Democratic elected officials, they're going to do it. They are okay with that. They are prepping their base to accept it, to ask for it, and to cheer it on. And we should have no illusions that, in fact, this ratchet has moved today and is moving in real time right now with every reaction and non-reaction from members of Congress who refuse to stand up for one of their colleagues who was doing a job for his constituents, the job that he was elected to do in his home state. So every moment that passes, that line is moving. And again, this takes place in the context of the militarization of law enforcement, this military parade, and quite frankly, keep in mind the administration's attempt to radicalize the troops. I mean, it is alarming enough, as the general has said, that we're using these troops. But keep in mind what happened at Fort Bragg the other day, where the president did not just simply use the troops as props, but seems to want to radicalize them as agents of the MAGA movement. That's one of the reasons why I think so many people have that knot in their stomach. They realize that they're living in a very different society. It was very interesting hearing Ben Rhodes in the last hour say, we've actually already gone past the tipping point of countries like Hungary. You and I were warning a year ago and accused of Trump derangement syndrome for saying Donald Trump wants to be like Viktor Orban in Hungary. And as Ben Rhodes pointed out, we've gone way past anything that Viktor Orban might have imagined in his campaign to destroy democratic institutions.
And this weekend's authoritarian birthday parade for Trump in D.C., I fear may be the moment that Trump seizes or attempts to seize total power of the government, with hundreds of tanks and loyal soldiers lined up to surround him from the dissent he so despises.
We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester who wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, this is people that hate our country.
Again, I said loyal soldiers. That's because apparently the Department of Defense under Hegseth and Trump is now vetting to look for soldiers and military servicemen and women who are loyal to Trump only. So, because remember, when they sign up for the military, service members are swearing an oath to the Constitution. And by the way, what Trump just said in that clip there is blatantly unconstitutional. Not that he gives a flying fuck about the rule of law at this point. He's talking about essentially a regime change in California in terms of Los Angeles. And that is what dictators do. We're going to liberate. That's what people like Maduro and Mussolini and Hitler himself did. In fact, what they are doing is the very opposite of liberty and freedom.
They have it in Europe, too. It's happening in many of the countries of Europe. They don't like it when I say it. but I'll say it loudly and clearly. They better do something before it's too late. Very simply, we will liberate Los Angeles and make it free, clean, and safe again. It's happening very quickly.
Los Angeles does not need liberating. What Trump is doing is trying to intimidate blue states into submission by illegally using U.S. armed forces against our own citizens. Let me say that again. Donald Trump is trying to intimidate American citizens, particularly in blue democratically run states, by illegally using U.S. armed forces against our own citizens. That is where we are, people. Think about if you saw that over, like in the UK, for example. All of a sudden you saw British troops storming the streets and attacking and thugging out at British citizens. You would be like, that is some crazy shit. That is authoritarian. Oh my God, what has happened to the United Kingdom? Well, that's exactly what is happening here in the United States of America right now. And that is what the rest of the world is thinking about us. And, Trump is instructing his henchmen and henchwomen to follow his orders, whether or not they are following the Constitution.
Just give a simple, okay, let me ask you this. Two simple questions. You got 30 seconds. I'm not trying to trick you. I think it would assure the American people. Because it shouldn't be Ro Khanna's view of the Constitution, and it shouldn't be Secretary Hegseth's. It should be the Supreme Court and the federal courts. Can you assure the American people on two things? You will respect any Supreme Court decision on this matter about whether the Marines are constitutional, and you will respect the district courts when they rule before the Supreme Court rules.
What I can say is we should not have local judges determining foreign policy or national security policy for the country.
So you're not willing to say you would respect those decisions?
What I'm saying is local district judges shouldn't make foreign policy for the United States.
Gentleman's time's expired.
We're going to stay here and build our operations until we make sure that we liberate the city of Los Angeles.
Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem have thrown out any pretense of rule of law out the window. It's gone. As Ron Filipkowski points out, that is not what the military is supposed to do in terms of Kristi Noem saying, we're going to liberate Los Angeles. That is called a military coup. That is called authoritarian dictatorship, okay? And the Republicans are fully in league with this fascist state, by the way. Here is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, talking about using a medieval form of torture and abuse against the sitting governor of California.
Moment you would arrest Gavin Newsom. Do you believe that Newsom should face consequences in a legal way?
That's not my lane. I'm not going to give you legal analysis on whether Gavin Newsom should be arrested, but he ought to be tarred and feathered. I'll say that. I mean, look, he's standing in the way of the administration and the carrying out of federal law. Right? He is applauding the bad guys and standing in the way of the good guys. He is trying to. He's a participant, an accomplice in our federal law enforcement agents being not just disrespected but assaulted. This is a serious problem, and
he is just despicable. That shit-eating grin, I'd like to just smack it right off of his face. I'm sorry, but I cannot stand that man. He is lying. They are all lying. The MAGA movement is a fascist authoritarian cult. They have no intention of giving up power. They are planning a military coup. And if you don't believe me, then look at what the hell is going on in DC right now. Notice that Trump is only sending National Guard troops and Marines to blue states instead of places like Ruby Red, Missouri, where thousands of people have been left in crisis by tornadoes and severe weather damage because of his cuts to the National Weather Service and NOAA. Take a look at this video.
Sending the National Guard and they're sending the Marines to California for a fake emergency immigration crisis. Meanwhile, in North St. Louis, ain't nobody sending shit here. So that tornado happened about a month ago, and this is what it looks like. It's still fucked up. I mean, maybe there's some things that are happening. People got some tarps on their roofs. But look, if you look down these streets, maybe people have some porta potties. You know why they got porta potties? Because they got no water. So they got to use fucking porta potties and have no place to go to the toilet. Look at these houses down here completely destroyed. This whole fucking neighborhood is wiped out. And yet, we got resources to fight a fake immigration issue, and places like this are still fucking devastated and receive no help whatsoever. This is complete bullshit.
See, if Donald Trump and his cabinet of thugs and the Republicans in Congress gave a shit about Americans, they'd have the National Guard down there, rebuilding homes, cleaning up trash and debris, doing the things that the National Guard is really good at doing. But no, they're too busy fronting mostly peaceful protests in California because Trump is jealous of Governor Gavin Newsom. And yes, Trump is acting like a full-blown dictator. So we need to be honest and use honest words about his regime like that. It's not an administration, it's a regime. He's acting like a dictator and on his way to becoming one. Listen to Representative Yasmin Ansari of Arizona break it down.
Mocked us for referring to Donald Trump as a dictator, so let's run through the list. Donald Trump has, since he was inaugurated, pardoned violent January 6 insurrectionists. Dictator. Defied Supreme Court orders and attacked the judiciary. Dictator. Unilaterally abolished congressionally chartered federal agencies. Dictator. Attacked the free press. Sounds like a dictator. Kidnapped people off of the streets and deported them to foreign prisons without due process. Sounds like a dictator. Defunded higher education. Dictator. Threatened law firms and the legal profession. Dictator. This weekend, he is spending tens of millions of dollars to host a massive military parade for his birthday. Is this North Korea? On top of all of that, our twice impeached president with a 34-count convicted felony president who is not a king has deployed the active duty military in American cities, and he has spent $134 million to do so. He has their guns trained on American citizens without the consent of local authorities or the state's governor to purposefully generate chaos and provoke a reaction. Meanwhile, we have Republicans on this side of the aisle asking governors of states about bathrooms. This is the most dystopian, horrific episode of Black Mirror that I have ever seen.
You know, I appreciate her and other leaders who are not normalizing the shit show that we are living in right now. You cannot normalize this. We are long gone across the Rubicon. As Representative Eric Swalwell pointed out today in this tweet, America is dying. Trump's agents just physically attacked a U.S. senator. This is how freedom dies.
They are okay with that. They are prepping their base to accept it, to ask for it, and to cheer it on.
Yeah, normalizing violence against fellow members of Congress, against U.S. citizens. But what concerns me is that far too many Americans on the left still are not recognizing or accepting where we are right now. I have several friends on the left who are just not understanding the serious moment that we are in. And I think it's a rationalization. They just cannot absorb that America is not the America that it was 6 months ago under President Joe Biden, that we are in fact a failing nation and falling quickly into dictatorship. Listen to Nicole Wallace explain.
Well, there's also an adaptive human thing going on where the traumatized brain adapts to the moment by saying, well, the courts are holding, yes. And that's true. The courts are holding. But that doesn't mean that the people getting swept up and put in bans aren't traumatized for the months that it takes for the courts to do, to work through these cases. And I wonder if there isn't something meant to survive the trauma to our democracy, to the fabric of our democracy, that is lulling people. I don't think people are complacent, certainly not viewers of this program, certainly not the Democratic leaders or the Democratic members who have spoken out forcefully and with clarity today. But there does seem to be a successful shock and awe that the Trump team has executed in these 130 days.
There has been, and I am probably somewhat more optimistic about the courts holding the line. However, this is again one of those moments where don't expect that the courts are going to really draw a red line about the use of the military. I did a podcast with our mutual friend Harry Littman the other day, and he said, it's very possible that they will greenlight his use of these military forces, and that opens up a real Pandora's box. So I do think he was successful in the shock and awe, but I do sense that is changing. I mean, you're just watching the reaction today of members of Congress who have, gone through the motions in some ways. I'm going to be too critical of them, but you can see that they are fully aroused to the threat, and I think that, and I just sense that the visuals right now are so dramatic and will be so dramatic over the next couple of weeks that you're going to see that the American people are realizing, you know what, no one's coming to save us. The courts aren't coming to save us. Congress is not coming to save us. The media is not coming to save us. You have to go out and you have to do this. And that I think is the tipping point. That I think is the other tipping point.
From Charlie's mouth to your ears, man, please wake up. Congress is not going to save us. The Republicans are all in for a dictator. They are now threatening sitting governors who testified in Congress with criminal charges. This is just absolute fascist insanity. And you know what? The courts can only do so much. They move at the speed of sludge. And the Supreme Court has shown itself to be fully fascist when it matters the most. So it's up to us. We're the ones we have been waiting for. Now is not the time to be quiet and hide under a blanket and act like it's not as bad as it is. No, you can't do that right now. Nothing is going to change unless we, the people, make it change and make it happen. So those are my words to you right now. We're in a bad place. We're in a place that America has truly, really never been before. Maybe right before the Civil War. So I will see you in the streets.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.